Brandon Aiyuk. He has unfollowed the 49ers on Instagram real quick.
Oh.
Like,
We've seen this before, right?
I'm sure Deebo hit him up like, hey, man, 2 weeks out, do it. Press the button. So do you think, like, when this happened, did this change your feelings of how this is going to end up? What are your thoughts right now on the Brandon Aiyuk situation?
All right, fair enough. But before we get into that, let me just say this about what you said. I think sometimes the truth hurts. And as a fan, I want to see the Niners win. That's all I want to see. Niners win Super Bowls, that is. So sometimes it hurts me to be realistic about things that we see or hear, right? Anyway, about Aiyuk. I don't think that him unfollowing a team has much to do with anything but leverage. As a lawyer, I know all about negotiating, not everything, but I do know about negotiating some things. And I think this could be another repeat of what Deebo did.
No question. Yeah, I even found an article from a couple of months ago where Deebo was talking about how he's going to be helping Brandon Aiyuk through the process. It's like, is that a good thing?
well, hold on. Deebo did get paid.
He did get paid. It's true.
So it could be a good thing, right?
I mean, I felt like Deebo was going to get paid one way or another. He didn't get paid because he threw a fit that year. He got. I mean, I don't know. The Niners wanted him. They take a long time. I feel like why this is a story is because I think there's a difference between the Deebo situation and the Aiyuk situation. When Deebo was up for an extension, it was his offense. It was his team. Like, there was no team that was going to look at Deebo and say, we can give him more touches in the Niner. We can use him in more ways in the Niners. Like, they had already kind of maxed him out. Niners have not maxed out Brandon Aiyuk. He knows it. They know it. The league knows it. And maybe things will change, over the next couple of years with Brock Purdy. But you could, if I were Brandon Aiyuk, I would feel like there's got to be multiple teams that are willing to pay me what I want. And I don't know that the Niners are one of them. And I think that's the problem here.
Okay, but let's look at it this way. I think Brandon Aiyuk knows how important and vital he is to this offense.
Hell yeah.
Okay, because we're at, I think, a precipice on our team where I think this is probably the last year we can go all in for a Super Bowl, right? And I think Aiyuk knows that he's needed in order to do that again. Looking at his stats, Grant, I mean, I just looked at him this morning again, and I see a guy who, let's see, played 16 games last year. So he missed one game. I think was at the last game, or maybe he had one for injury, the shoulder. But he had 75 receptions on 105 targets, 1,342 yards.
Yeah.
17.9 average per reception and 7 TDs.
He's just off the charts.
Yeah, exactly. And this is in an offense where he's not the focus point, right? This is in an offense where it's primary run first. Okay. So I think he has grown a bond and a rapport with Purdy. That's very important. And I think the Niners, if they're trying to go for a Super Bowl this year, have to retain my man, number 11, the assassin, Aiyuk.
Okay. That is one way to look at it. If they're going to win the Super Bowl this year, it just gets tricky down the line, giving him a 4 or 5 year deal. But like, again, let's take it out of it. What the Niners want to do. The Niners want to keep Brandon Aiyuk. They've made that clear. They want to keep him. He's great. What does Aiyuk want, though? I think Deebo wanted the most money he could get. And he found out over the course of the offseason that was with the 49ers. I think Brandon Aiyuk wants the most money he can get, and I'm not sure that he feels that's here. He wants the most targets he can get. I'm not sure he feels that's here, and he might be right. So what is the incentive for him to sort of meet the Niners in the middle? Deebo ended up meeting them in the middle. Kittle ended up meeting them in the middle with the confidence that they were going to be featured in the offense. Aiyuk might not. And if Aiyuk's going to drive a hard bargain and say, I need $27 million that's what I need, that's kind of what Buckner did. Like, I'm worth $21 million per season. Like, I'm that good, and I need to be compensated as such. And the Niners are like, well, if you can't negotiate with us, we'll trade you. So I just feel like it might come down to if the Niners get the offer they like.
Okay, but there's two things that Aiyuk wants. Dollar bills for sure. He wants to get paid. Don't blame him. Again, with the stats he put up in this offense, I think is great. The other thing that he wants is one of these. He wants a ring, and it's clear that's what he wants. That's at least what this Niner fan wants. But the way he acted in his last interview, the closing interview, I think you were in front of him. The man was literally fighting back tears because that's how bad he wants to win a Super Bowl. That's how
That's true.
bad. He said the word championship several times. And then in his he was on a podcast with Sterling Sharp, and Ocho Cinco. He said the same thing, championship. So I think there's two things he wants, and I know I believe he realizes that with the Niners, this is best shot to win a Super Bowl. Granted, if he didn't have Kyle Levy as his coach.
So it's possible that when it's all said and done, when August rolls around, he'll play ball with the 49ers, just like George Kittle did and Deebo did before him. I mean, he's posturing right now like he won't, but that's what every player does, right?
Exactly. I would too.
Right.
It's funny.
Right. Yeah. Now, I feel like if you had Brandon Aiyuk alone privately, you asked him, would you like the Niners to trade you before the draft? Do you think he'd say yes or no?
I don't think he would. And this is not from a homer take, but just the way he kept saying championship. So I think that's important to him. And I just say that because he kept saying that word.
Sure.
He was legitimately pissed and sad that we didn't win the Super Bowl. And right. I think he would not say that he wanted to trade. By the way, if he wanted to say if he wanted to force a trade, he could just come out and say it now. He could have said it on Twitter, right? Sure. But what was the first thing he said on Twitter? Money talks, BS walks, right? So I think he really wants the money and a championship. So I don't think he would ask for a trade publicly.
You know what it seems like? It seems like he wants validation from the 49ers. It seems like what he wants. It's like, look, man, you guys have kind of treated me like this little brother on this offense forever. You put me in the doghouse. You made it public. You like froze me out in the Super Bowl and gave all the targets to Deebo. I want my damn recognition. I want the money. I want the targets. I don't want to go anywhere else, but I want you to look at me in a different light. And I don't know that Kyle Shanahan ever will. That's a tough one. I mean, he has a full-on bromance with Deebo. Like, that's not going to ever change. And I'm just saying, like, I just don't know that Aiyuk is necessarily his type. So they may be in an impasse there. He may never get the targets he wants. But I'm with you, man. I think he wants the validation from the best team, not from Washington.
Right.
Not from New England.
Yeah, I don't see his career going off at those two locations. May be wrong. But yeah, I would want validation. You know, this so-called doghouse, his sophomore year, and less targets. But at the end of the day, if the money is right, and if he feels he's got a chance to compete for a legitimate Super Bowl title, I think he'll remain. But as far as Kyle, here's the thing. I think Kyle is going to realize really soon, if he already hasn't, even though I think Kyle's a little bit socially unaware at times, or at least with his time management of games and certain play calls, maybe he's not so aware of the situation. But I think he realizes that he needs Aiyuk. Because look at it this way. Without Aiyuk this year, tell me how productive would our offense be? We don't have a man beater.
Right. That's all I'm saying. You got to tell me on Brandon Aiyuk. I think he's great. Here, I got a scenario for you.
Go ahead.
Tell me if you think this is plausible. Remember 2 years ago, things weren't going so good with Deebo and the Niners. And then we interviewed Kyle about it during the draft. And I think someone asked, like, why are you so confident that you're going to work this out with Deebo? And he's like, because I haven't even called him yet. That's my friend. We'll work it out. I haven't even talked to him yet. Is he going to call Aiyuk? Like, do they have that kind of relationship? Because it would be interesting. It would be real interesting. Like, from Aiyuk's perspective, it's like he seems like the kind of guy who holds grudges, who remembers slights, and who wants a little bit of retribution. So can you imagine some of the things that Kyle has said to Brandon Aiyuk privately throughout the years when he was young, when he couldn't say anything back? Now the tables are turned. You want me to stay here? You want me to take a little less money to make things good? Why don't you call me up and kiss my ass? How about that?
Hey, listen.
Is he going to do it? Because he did it for Deebo.
Kyle, listen. Pick up that phone right now.
Pick up the phone. Tell him what he needs to hear, man. He's 25 years old. He wants your validation, man. Tell him what he needs to hear.
He has to give it to him. It's not just about giving him validation, but it's the proof is in the pudding. Look at Purdy. Look how Purdy progressed with Aiyuk. That was his number one receiver, wide receiver. Okay. So he knows, I think Kyle realizes that's the key to his offense now is Purdy. And who makes Purdy more productive? Aiyuk. So yes, Kyle, please, I won't call you Kyle Levy anymore. Pick up the phone, call Aiyuk and tell Aiyuk how much he's important to this team. Not just this year, but Grant, I also think future years. Aiyuk is still young. This will be his first contract, his extension. He's young. He can grow with Purdy. And I think that now I don't know about playing him on that 5th-year option is the way to go. You don't want to piss him off. But I think that the way that the contracts would work, we don't have to worry about both he and Deebo both being $25 million against the cap in a particular year. We can get in that later. And I love you, Deebo, if you ever see this, because I know you guys act like you don't like Grant. I love you, bro. But it's just not quite, you're not quite the same anymore. And you're not a man beater. We saw it in the Super Bowl. We need Aiyuk. We need a man beater.
That's the point before we move on. Like, we see how defenses are going to try to defend Purdy. I think this is a Purdy thing. He's so good against zone. Like, his accuracy and mostly his anticipation makes him tough to beat from zone. Teams had more success, it seemed, playing man-to-man coverage because they did a pretty good job against Deebo that way. And if that's, and it really requires a little bit more arm talent. So if that's how teams are going to play the Niners, then you really do need Brandon Aiyuk and another guy like him.
So exactly. So tell me this then, Grant. Let's just say, because I know yesterday I think I heard you say you want him traded. And Aiyuk, listen, I don't think he means that, but maybe he does.
No, I do. I've explained why, but we can talk about it.
Right.
But I mean it from like if I were the general manager of another team, I'd be looking at the Niners like, I gotta get Aiyuk. Like, they don't know what they're doing with him. They're never gonna get him, like, fully utilize him. And if I trade for him now, coming off this 75 catch season, it's kind of like buying low. Because on my team, he's gonna have 110 catches. I'll make sure of it.
Oh, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Aiyuk knows that. Yeah, I agree.
I kind of think of it as like, remember 10 years ago when James Harden was a 6th man for the Thunder, and the Rockets were like, why don't you come on our team and take 24 shots a game, see what happens? It's like, oh, that was a good investment. That worked.
But let's not talk about James Harden because he's been around the league since then, right? I don't know if he's unlike Aiyuk. So Aiyuk stays in shape. And that's another thing. Again, I'm a Niners fan through and through. I'm not necessarily a Players fan like I used to be. That guy, Montana, to me, was the greatest of all time. So I'll always be that guy's fan. But let me just say this, followed by Rice. I just want the Niners to win. I just don't see how trading Aiyuk lets us win a Super Bowl, okay? So let's just say, though, we do trade him, all right? Let's say we get somewhere in the 16 to 19 range, first round. Let's just say that, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Who could we get that would propel this team, specifically the offense, to be better than what it was, let's say, in the Super Bowl, and let's say in the first half of the NFC Championship game against the Lions?
I mean, that's a tough one. You may not get someone better than Aiyuk, but you might get someone younger, faster, cheaper, maybe even more talented, but better than Aiyuk right away. That's probably not going to happen.
Exactly.
So what happens, and that's again why the Niners don't want to do this, because trading Aiyuk ultimately makes you worse this year when you're trying to win the Super Bowl.